This is Bob. Bob wastes a lot of time on his phone and on TikTok. He also wonders why he got so much lower back pain. Bob wants to better his life one day. He's motivated, but at the end of the day, he has no clue what he has to do. But then, this happened. Do I mean to say that this book was sent by the gods? Of course not, but it does contain some handy tips and tricks if you want to learn how to build good habits and eventually build your own lifestyle. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Josh and I want to welcome you into a brand new series in which we dive deeper into the tips, tricks, guidelines and principles of certain books which can help you be more intentional and build the life you want. To kick off this series, we will start with one of the most popular books in the self-development world at the moment, Atomic Habits. So in his book, Atomic Habits, author James Clear basically works on two principles. The most important one, the backbone of the book, is this 4-step model of behavioral change, or otherwise how you can build good habits. But before we dive into that, we have to talk about something very important first, and that is the importance of the 1%. To explain to you the importance of the 1%, I'm gonna have to use this paper. Okay, so let's say we have this graph in which you can depict your results compared to time. Of course, the goal of this is you want your results to be as big as possible, and basically your starting point is at point 1. This is your default setting, you could say. This is where you start in life. This is your 100%. You haven't succeeded yourself yet. You haven't become worse at all. Now the thing is, why is this 1% so important? Like, well, let's say that for the following years, for 365 days, we become worse every day by 1%. This would mean you would become 99% of what you are every day for about a year, so for 365 days, which would end up at a score of 0.03. So on the scale, on the graph, this would be like somewhere around here, and so you would see by the end of the year, you become close to 0. Now, if we do the opposite thing, if we improve ourselves by only 1% for every day for a period of 1 year, you would get 37.78, which would be somewhere maybe around here, let's say. And so at the end of the year, you grew a lot. And so this is why, by using the 1% rule, you can become 37 times better at what you're doing by the end of the year. The fact that this is possible is because of something called compounding. It's like every day you get a little percent, but the more you have, the more you get. You get interest upon your interest. And so this phenomenon called compound interest is even something Albert Einstein was really excited about. He notoriously said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. So instead of just diving in, focus on doing these small steps every day and improving yourself just by 1%. Now that we understand the importance of the 1% rule, it is time to look at the backbone of the book, what James Clear himself calls the 4-step model of behavioral change. Behavior consists of 4 different parts. The first one is a cue. Let's say, for instance, you walk down the street, you see a McDonald's. Following the cue comes a craving. Because you saw McDonald's, you think, I would really like a burger right now. So, because of the craving, you respond. You enter McDonald's, you order a burger. And then eventually, it ends all with a reward. You eat a burger, it's really good, you enjoy it, that's your reward. Now the thing with these 4 stages of a behavior is that they consist in a loop. The reward, the ending stage of one behavior, can become the cue of another behavior. So they could consist together something like this. Cue goes in a craving, craving emits a response, response gives a reward, and reward becomes a new cue. This is what he calls the habit loop. And because behavior consists of these 4 stages, we can make use of that theory to make it easier for ourselves to build good habits. James created something what he calls the 4 laws of behavioral change. The first law is to make it obvious. The reason why we want to make the new habit obvious is because it's related to the first stage of behavior, namely cue. The author himself defines behavior as people and their environment. For this reason, a small shift in what you see can lead to a big shift in what you do. Let's take for instance the example that every morning you want to go for a run. One of the great things you can do is already put your running shoes next to your bed, so when you wake up in the morning, you see your running shoes, you get reminded, hey, this is what I wanted to do. So in this sense, you take your shoes, you get dressed, and you go for that run. Another example is, for instance, if you have to take certain pills every day in the morning, sometimes you forget them. A great thing you can do is just put the pills in a very visible spot in your environment, which makes you see them, and once you see them, you get reminded, oh, I can't forget to take my pills today. The second law is to make it attractive. And this whole thing is built on pure science and pure biology. For instance, we know that when you get rewarded by something, we see a dopamine spike in the brain. Dopamine is released when we experience a certain kind of pleasure. But something else we've discovered is that dopamine is not only released while we're experiencing a pleasure, but also while we're anticipating it. So if you make a certain habit attractive beforehand, knowing that something will come, already releases a certain amount of dopamine in your brain, which makes it easier to actually go do the habit. Let's say you have a habit that you really like to do, but it's not as important at the moment, and there's another habit that you need to get done, but you don't want to do it. A great thing you can do then is something James calls temptation bundling. Temptation bundling goes as follows. After the current habit you're doing, you will first do the habit you need to do. And then, after the habit you need to have done, it will be followed by the habit you want to do. And just by really already anticipating the pleasure you will get from doing the habit you want to do, you can motivate yourself to first do the habit you need to get done, and then eventually get rewarded by the habit you want to do. Many people, for instance, want to get in shape and want to go to the gym, but they dread actually going and working hard. A great thing you can do then, when you start going to the gym, is go together with a friend. This makes the whole experience much more attractive, since you know you'll not be alone, you'll be probably more motivated, you can push each other, and just the whole thing becomes more attractive. The third law is to make it easy. Making it easy is important because there is something called the law of least effort. The law of least effort states that when deciding between two similar options, people will naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. Or, said differently, the easier something is to do, the more likely you will do it. The idea here is, when we couple it back to the environment that we talked about in the first law, is to make your environment as friendly as possible, to make sure that the habit you want to do is as easy as possible to be done. For instance, if we take the first example again, if you put your shoes next to your bed when you want to go running in the morning, it is not only an obvious cue to do so, but it's also very easy to do so, because the first thing you can do is just put on your shoes and you can just leave the door and go for that run. Lastly, we are with the fourth law, which is to make it satisfying. This final law is being seen as the most important one, because at the end you can do certain habits and certain actions, but if you don't enjoy them, you will not repeat them. One way James proposes to use this is by having an accountability partner or making something he calls a habit contract. An accountability partner is someone who you can share with what you will try to do, and he will keep you accountable to be sure that you're actually doing it. Let's for instance say, back to the running. You say, okay, dear friend, I have told myself that every week I want to go for 3 runs. Then it would be the job of the accountability partner to check in with you each week and ask you, have you gone on your run 3 times this week? If not, you kindly feel guilty and embarrassed and shamed, which is a kind of a punishment. If you did go for your run, however, you feel kind of good, like, yes, I did. I feel proud and I feel good about myself. This is your reward. And I want to end with some last tips that you can use to help yourself make this happen. The first one is habit tracking. Habit tracking is powerful because it uses 3 out of the 4 laws of behavioral change. It simultaneously makes a behavior obvious, attractive, and satisfying. First of all, it creates a visual cue to do something. And when you have done this habit for several days on end, you can see your progress, which makes it attractive. Seeing that you're making progress is also very rewarding and satisfying. Of course, it could always happen that we skip a day, but the The most important thing is, when you miss one day, don't worry about it, just start again the next day. The most important thing is to restart doing it, because skipping it once is an accident. Skipping it twice is the start of a new habit. So there they are, the tips and tricks, guidelines and principles of Atomic Habits, which can help you build good and lasting habits. If there are any books that you would recommend to me or you would like me to dive deeper into, let me know in the comments. I myself will be using these tricks to motivate myself to go to the gym a little bit more again and to wake up earlier in the morning, because I've been sleeping in so much the past couple of weeks. If there are any habits that you are working on, let me know in the comments, and I hope that these tricks will help you as well. That was it for this week's video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye bye!